5, 4, 3, 2.5, 2 and a little bit, 1. Is it working? And we are now live. Hello coders, today we're going to be doing a very quick demonstration of Concrete5 installation using Docker. So one of my clients has asked me to rebuild a Concrete5 website. It's a very old website using a very old legacy version, and we've decided to rebuild it in a new version of Concrete5, the 8.5.1 version, and it's got it'll need to have PHP 7.2 and MySQL as well to handle the database. So what I've done is I've created a Git repository with this installation in there. And what I would like to do today is just demonstrate how that works. I should say I haven't actually ran this yet on this machine. I've only ran this on my laptop, so it probably could go wrong. Plus, there is an issue that I'm aware of with MySQL that I do need to change in the Docker compose file. But what I would like to do is just demonstrate the whole setup, how it all works, how things are hanging together, because it did take me a bit of time to work out how to do all of this stuff. For those that don't know, Concrete5 is it's a content management system essentially that you can use to build websites with. It's very drag and droppy. It's very similar to how perhaps the Wix builder, the site builders work. I'm very new to this, very new to this. It's only been recently in the last few weeks that I've actually been exposed to Concrete5, and viewers who know me by now will know that I do everything I possibly can do in Docker. So this is where we are. What I'll do is I'll just go straight to the browser. I have put a link in the description below to this repository. So it's GitHub. My GitHub username is pfwd, and it's just Concrete5 install. So what we're going to do is just walk through that, and then I'll run some code, see if it works. So let's just check out. Let's just go to the browser here. So we've got two folders. We have a Docker folder with some configuration in there, and the site. The site is what I used when I did the Composer Create project, and I said put the Concrete5 in the site folder. We've also got a Docker ignore Docker file here, and we've also got a env, which I'll talk about in just a second. We've also got the compose file. What I'll just talk through first before I even touch those files is just an installation guide. So the specifications is that it requires Concrete5 version 8.5.1, MySQL 8. Now that is an issue. There is an issue, a known problem that I have just discovered today with Concrete5 and MySQL 8. There's an issue with reserved keywords in MySQL 8. There's more reserved keywords, so I need to sort that out. I'm hoping to do that in today's stream. And then it uses PHP 7.2. So the requirements are Docker, Docker machine, Docker compose. So this is how you go and install it. So you've got the Docker machine create Concrete5, and then you evaluate that to the shell. Then you adjust the env file, and I'll talk about that when I get to it. Then you go into the site, and then you run composer install. After that, you come out of the site, you go back into the root level, and then you do a docker compose up -d -build to build the application. Then check the Docker machine IP to get the IP of the machine that you can run in the browser. And basically essentially this is where I want to sort of end in this stream, but time is short, so I hope I get to that point. So I'll just show you the compose file, the Docker compose file. Actually, yeah, I'll show you the Docker compose file first. So I'll just click onto that. This might be easier actually if I demonstrate this in PHP Storm rather than the browser. So let's just bear with me just a minute whilst I just flip the screens. So here we go. So I've literally just cloned this just before the stream. So the Docker Compose file is here. So we're running version 3.4. These are the volumes, the Docker volumes that I'm going to be using. So we have the MySQL volume here. We have site files, languages, packages, and configuration. These are all things that Concrete5 needs to write to. I had a bit of an issue with the writable stuff, the permissions. This possibly isn't the best way of doing it, and if there's anybody out there who has built Concrete5 with Docker and they're looking at this and they're going, this is a bit odd, then do let me know. Do let me know how best to solve it. So then we have the services. There's only two services here. There's Apache and there is MySQL. So the Apache service is running from the current context. So we're using the current Dockerfile within the root directory, and I'll demonstrate that soon. I'm setting the container name just for ease of use, restart always. These are all the volumes that we're sorting, we're going through. So we've got a bind mount of the site to var ww. So remember, the site directory is the directory where the site Concrete5 will live. Then we're also dealing with, or we're bind mounting the Apache vhost file, the conf file, into the Apache 000 default conf. This is just standard stuff. Then we're dealing with all of the Docker volumes. So these two are the bind mounts. Then this lot here is all of the Docker volumes that we're setting up to store all of this stuff. And yes, I am also storing vendor in there too, just because it's easier to do so. Then we have the env file, which I'll demonstrate shortly. The env is, well, there was a couple of issues I had with Concrete5 and the environment variables, because the Concrete5 requires you to have DB username, password, database, and hostname. However, the MySQL Docker image, the official one, requires you to have MySQL underscore username, MySQL underscore root underscore password, and MySQL database and MySQL host. So what I did is I created the .env file to hold all of these things, the MySQL underscore stuff, and then what I'm doing here is I'm assigning DB underscore username, the environment variable, to that environment variable. Otherwise, what I would have to do is just duplicate these, and that would just become messy and just unmanageable. Then we are creating some networks, so I'm just going to create this as test and test, like so. After that, we've got, let's just call that testnet, I think. That's probably better, just because I've got other networks running. Testnet, that's good. And then what we're doing is down here, we've got restart always. Well, we got the MySQL image that needs to run 5.7, I think. I might double check that in just a second. So there is a problem with MySQL 8, as I've mentioned before, with Concrete5. There is a when you log in to the admin section, it does a group by, and it's using I think it does a group by. Anyway, it does a query which includes the keyword groups, and it falls over. And I only found that out when I got to the point. I mean, I set up the site and it was all looking good, and then I decided to log out, because after you've done the installation process, you're automatically logged in. So I didn't actually see this error until I logged out and then logged back in again, which was annoying because that meant I had to just completely rebuild the whole thing. But with Docker, it's very easy to do that, which is great. Then what we've got here is depends. So this depends upon Apache, because, you know, chicken and egg, you can't have one without the other. And then we're setting up the Docker volume here, which is the MySQL underscore data. I'm just going to call that data rather than rebuild. We don't need to worry about that. This is just legacy stuff, like so. Okay, so then after that, we're dealing with these char sets and the my.cnf. So I believe because now I've set this to 5.7, I don't need to worry about the myCNF stuff. Let me just demonstrate that. Let's go this way. So these are all held within the Docker folder here. So you've got the vhost in here, and then you've got the MySQL stuff. So the myCNF had this default authentication plugin that you have to set when you're using MySQL 8, because the default has changed from MySQL 5.7 and so forth. But I don't think I need to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just comment that out, or I'm just going to simply remove it. It'll be in my local history. That's fine. But the thing that you do need to do for Concrete5, which did confuse me a little bit, was the char sets. So the MySQL d_char set needs to be set to UTF-8. And that isn't set by default when you build the Docker image for MySQL. So that's defined up in here. So we have default char set of UTF-8 MB4, and you should really use MB4 rather than UTF-8. And you've got some other bits and pieces around the char sets as well, or character sets, I should say. So that is that. Is there anything else apart from the networks? This is all testnet. Let's just compare. Yeah, that looks good. That looks good to me. Let's close these down. Oh, I should show you the vhost.conf. So this is the vhost.conf. Very standard, to be honest, for an Apache vhost. I did notice that there was an issue with Nginx and Concrete5. It didn't work out of the box. Regarding various things to do with mod rewrite, and there was other issues as well. I could have solved it. I could have worked through those issues. However, time was against me. Apache was running out of the box when I read down the Concrete5 forums, and I just thought, let's just use the thing that works rather than make our lives a little bit more difficult. So we've got the server name and so forth here. I believe what I've done, let me just go back to the browser a mo. Yeah, I need to set all these things. That's what I need to do. Yeah, so what I need to do is I need to actually set these things. So what I've got in the .env.dist file, if I move it this way, so we have the MySQL host, database, username, password, all those things. That's for MySQL. Then we've got the Apache stuff. Then we've got the Concrete5 bits and pieces. So I need to change this to be the host, and the host I think needs to be the container name, which is MySQL. We're going to give a database name here. We're going to call this, I don't know, example. It's not very good. Naming things is difficult. I'm just going to give the username of root and the password of test, because this is just a test thing. However, what I shouldn't do, of course, is I shouldn't be changing the dist file. Let me just bring that back if I can try. There we go. I should be copying that and making another file called env. So let's just copy that. Close that down. Paste that in. Just call that env.env, like so. And then I can revert these changes. Git, where are you? Git, revert. There we go. Yep, revert those changes. Okay, so that's back to what it was. .env, as you can see, it's gone like this sort of, I don't know, is that yellow? Sort of amber color? That's because my git ignore file is ignoring .env and also .idea, which is the PHP Storm stuff. So in here we've got MySQL that maps to the MySQL container or service, I should say. Then we've got the database, which is example, the username, which is root, password, which is test. Fine. That is the Apache root, which is the default Apache root. And if you notice that, I think in here, yeah, we've got site files in public, HTML public. So that, yeah, that wires up quite nicely. So server name, I'm just going to go for temp.local. Server admin, I'm just going to go for Pete at, I don't know, how to code well dot foo. It doesn't go anywhere. It's just I needed to set these things up. Let's just ignore that. That's going to get in the way. And yeah, I think that's all good. That's all good in the hood. So now what I can do is I'll demonstrate the Dockerfile. So the Dockerfile uses or runs from PHP 7.2 Apache. Let's bring that back. So that is my email address that I will remove. And we've got the apt-get update, all of these things. So we're installing Git and we're installing zip because you need those for Concrete5. Installing MySQL, which you have to do through Plek because it's not in the PHP 7.2. That's the MySQL extension isn't in there. Zip is in there twice. Why is zip in there twice? Let's remove that. Okay, so then we've got all this installation for MySQL, PDO, simple XML, and so forth. GD as well. Now we're enabling MySQL, so this is fairly standard stuff for a PHP install, I think. Then we are installing Composer. As I've demonstrated many times before, you're passing in the file name of Composer and you're putting it in that directory. So /bin. And then we're setting the working directory to var www.html. Now, I don't think I need to do this. However, I'm kind of leave it in because I don't want to mess up the stuff underneath. But I believe that is the default for Apache. Then we are copying everything in the site folder, which I will demonstrate shortly, into there. Then what we're doing here is we are making these files. Now, this was a pain in the neck, to be honest. I had to find these things on the old Google on the forums for Concrete5 to set these up. It's very frustrating, and I do wish that Concrete5 would just put all the things that need to be writable within a single folder and then allow me to just set that to be writable rather than have these at public application languages sites, public application config, public application files, and then public packages. I mean, why can't they just do /var and everything in var be public like they do in some cases for some Symfony installations where you've got var cache, var sessions, all of those kind of things, and var log and all of that jazz. Anyway, whatever, that's a bit of a rant. Let's not talk about that. What I've done is I've made a couple of changes to this already. Like I've taken that out and I've taken this out. I wonder if this is going to work. This might just fall flat on its face because I've made these changes. Usually what I like to do is I like to make smaller changes and test them out. But because I'm pushed for time, I haven't done that. So in site we have this is our public folder. We've also got resources, the SRC, which has a foo bar. I'm not too sure why. Then we've got test. This is all the stuff that came with Concrete5 when I did that create project. We've also got all the other bits and pieces. We've got also a env file in here, env.dist. Now we're not going to be using this because we're using the one in the root folder, but you can see here that we need to set the DB username, password, and database. This is the issue that I had with the environment variables. With MySQL, MySQL required, let me go back to that, these things, MySQL username, root, password. Now these are being set down here when I'm calling upon the .env. So that's the .env is being passed to this image when it gets built. So these will be baked in to that. So let's, without further ado, let's go and build this. Let's see what happens. So let's go to, what do I need to do? if I just changed, is it, bear with me, this might just go horribly wrong. I just need to flip up some, is it, no, is it that one? Yeah, we go. Boom. Okay, so you can see I literally have just cloned this down before the thing, and if I did Concrete5 to go into there, boom. Okay, so I haven't actually yet created the machine yet. So what I'm going to do is just run through, whoops, my own notes. It's always good to do that. So let's go to the README file. Okay, so I'm just going to copy these things into here. So Docker machine create Concrete5. And then wait for that to go. I should have done this before, to be honest, just to speed it up. So hopefully this will work. Looking at the time, I really need to push on because I want to chill out tonight. And there's no cat today, so in this room, so hopefully the green screen will stay up. So that's waiting for the IP. So if any of you guys have used Concrete5 before, then I'll be interested to know what your thoughts are. My initial take on Concrete5, as I've been using it in the last few days, it's very good for non-technical people who don't know anything about code to build a website. It's a pain to get set up. For the techies to set it up on the thing. Plus, upgrading it from the versions below 8.5.1, it's just a pain, absolute pain. Trying to get it from I was trying to get the site from version, I think it was like 5.4 all the way up to 8, and I got to the point where I just couldn't do anything because the code that was already in existence just was so custom. And yeah, so anyway, this is done. This is up and running, which is great. I can now do that. I like to do that all the time because it displays to me the the IP and everything, all the variables, but I could have just simply gone into that. So this is now evaluated that to this current shell. Of course, if I did docker ps-a, hopefully we shouldn't have anything. No, that's good. And if I did an ls, you can see I'm in that root directory. So the next thing, I've already done the environment variable. So what I need to do is I need to dive into site. This is where it could go horribly wrong because I haven't checked this machine for the version of PHP yet. So I need to do a composer install just to bring that all up. Yeah, I thought that was going to be a problem. So your requirements could not be resolved. Needs GD, requested GD image. Hold on. Sudo, is it port? Let me just bring it back to here. Just give me a second, guys and girls. So sudo port install. Blah, 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 blah. I should have put this in as a requirement. PHP 7.2, isn't it? GD. Are you going to do it? Are you going to do it? You're computing the dependencies. I'm just telling the system to, oh great, there's so much to install. Yes, just for this time. Go for it. Jeez. Wow. It's funny that because I want to install PHP 7.2 GD library, I need to install Python 2.7 and SQLite 3. Yeah. So in a weird way, you have a dependency PHP on Python, which is bizarre. I should have checked this way before I did this. I do apologize. Hopefully this will run through fairly quickly. Still running. Awesome. Okay, nearly done. Hopefully this is the only thing I need to do on this machine. This machine is a bit like just something I just throw things at and see if it sticks, really. And also I do all the recording and stuff on it. But my main driver is my laptop, because I like to, I don't always work here. But it does mean that you end up with things that aren't compatible, which is a shame. I am slowly moving all of my dot files to be in the GitHub repo, so I can then share them across the things. But one thing I've recently done, which is a massive change compared to these two machines, is that on the laptop I'm using the Z shell, and in this I think I'm just using Bash, and I really like the Z shell. The Z shell is fantastic, especially for programmers, because there's all sorts of things that you can do to jazz it up, and it just makes life a lot easier, especially with things like discovering the commands that you used to do, because it's got its own internal sort of history, if you like, which I find super, super useful. So it'll sort of highlight, it will highlight the previous commands that you've done as you're typing them. It's like an autocomplete thing, which is really, really useful. And also I've started to carve up different aliases for various clients. So some clients, I have their own sort of aliases that I can source as soon as I work on their stuff, which means that I've got a bunch of commands that I've already configured and built that I can just run to spin up containers and do a lot of like testing and stuff. I haven't really ported that over to this yet. Obviously, those things are private, so I do need to sort of like do some sort of security around those things before I even put it into a repository in the cloud. So but yeah, I'm always facing this problem where the laptop is completely out of, it's far more upgraded than this machine. I do apologize. I didn't want to do this. I just wanted this to work. I should have checked this, but like I said, I have literally just cloned this repo. I built this repo, yesterday? Yesterday afternoon. So I don't even know if it's going to work. Sorry, I'm just getting messages left, right, and center. Okay, come on. Yay, it's doing something. And it's now asking me to select Python, which is weird. I don't want to select Python. I just want to get this to work. So let's just run Composer install again, and hopefully, yay, we are now installing Concrete5. 138 packages. Whew, that is a lot. It could be worse. It could be node modules. Lol. Okay, so this is downloading a lot of stuff, and the thing about Concrete5 is it uses a lot of things from various other frameworks. So you can see here, Zend is being used a lot. I know that the Express, is it Express or Expressive? Whatever it is in Zend, I haven't used it personally, but they use that in Concrete5, which is pretty cool. And it's doing some things around Wikimedia, around less. So it also uses things from Laravel as well. I don't know what portable UTF-8 is, or URL-lify, not sure what that is. I definitely know what serializer is, because that's Symfony a jazzy thing, plus the file system and the config. Yep, use that quite frequently. Obviously monologue. Yep, use that pretty much all the time. And the PSR stuff. I have no idea what TEDVim or TeddyVim or whatever that is, stash, and JS or JShrink. I'm assuming that's something to do with shrinking. JavaScript, and then we've got all the other bits and pieces. Symfony routing, yep, use that quite a bit. It's always interesting to read all of this stuff and see what it is that you're actually installing. But yeah, hopefully this will speed up. 138. Does that look like 138? No. This is where my internet goes down, and I just can't do a damn thing. Come on. Connect. Connect. Why are you connecting? Just get it. Ah, good. It's using the console as well, which is something I tried to demonstrate the other night on Sunday, I think it was, because I created a Symfony console Docker repository in GitHub. And as I was doing it, my cat decided to pull down the green screen, which was not fun, but he made his debut. And of course, we're getting pager Fanta. I use that quite a bit in my projects. Actually, it's really, really good to deal with pagination. Zend code. I'm not sure what that is. The proxy manager as well. I've used that from time to time. Not sure what get text languages is all about, or iplib, but there you go. I've definitely used PHP Markdown, and I haven't used Punycode. Not sure what that is. Yikes, there's a lot here, isn't there? There's absolutely loads to download and use. The auth server. Gosh. Fractal. That sounds a bit intense. Fly system. Something to do with CSVs. Ugh, yikes. Wow. No doubt it's getting all of their dependencies as well. When did web development get like this? When did we get to the point where we had to install the whole world to run a website? I guess as websites have got more complicated, the requirements have got more complicated, and also the need of building a very complicated system very simply means that we need to have all of these packages. Yep. It does, though, make me think that our systems are more fragile than perhaps they were when things were a lot more simpler. But this is just because things have got more complicated, I think. That's my take on it. So we are downloading Imagine. I have no idea what that is. Imagine Dragons? Nope, I don't think they've got PHP. The OAuth 2 server. Now, I've used that, but I haven't used it from League, so I don't know what that's about. Come on, 85%, 90, come on. I'm going for 95 or 100%. That would be nice. 95%. That'll do. 100% now. I swear a lot of my time is just taken doing this stuff. Of course, once it's all cached, it's all good. This is one of the reasons why I put it as a Docker volume, because it's in a Docker volume rather than running off of bind mount. It means that you can you can either hide it from the Docker context by using the Docker ignore, which means that you're not having to apply all of this to the context, and then what you do is just mount in the Docker volume, the vendor thing. Definitely use those doctrine annotations, dbal, and collections persistence. Yeah, now we're talking all these things that I've used in anger. Doctrine ORM, definitely. Yeah, so that's why I put it in the Docker volume rather than bind mounting it in, because it just makes things a little bit quicker once you have all of the packages installed. Yeah, it's using doctrine migrations. I'm not sure. I mean, I've used that before, but I haven't seen that in Concrete5. It was one thing that I was quizzing myself on actually earlier is how do you go about creating a migration? Because the thing is, with Concrete5, there isn't really a way of knowing what has changed in the database. Not really. Because, well, once you give it to your client, they will just, alter it and change it, and obviously the database gets changed and so forth, and all good. However, when I was doing the updates were running through just a refresh of the browser, and I thought that was pretty bad, to be honest. You refresh your browser and then suddenly your database all changes because you've done an upgrade. I really, really do not like the fact of these content management systems like WordPress and Concrete5 and October CMS and other things like that allow the non-technical user to press a button that upgrades the site. That, to me, scares me a lot. There's been so many times where I've had to fix something because the process behind that has broken, and what have you. Whereas what I would like is to know what has changed when a version has changed using migration files. So actually seeing the raw SQL files, seeing what's changed, what's been altered, what's been removed, what's been added in MySQL as MySQL code. I don't want to just suddenly refresh the page and then sort of like hope that my connection is working, hope that nothing that I've created in a custom way is going to interfere with this update. When you're pressing the button, you're just kind of like, you're just stabbing in the dark, really. Apparently this will work. So I've had previous clients before where they've done this upgrade on WordPress and it's just fallen flat on its face, and they've done it to a production box because the option is there, because nobody has told them don't press that button, that big scary blue button, that's not good. So they've done that on a production box and it's fallen flat on its face, and of course the developers get the brunt of that because it's like, well, you're supposed to be you're the developer, you've developed this website, I've pressed this button, it's failed. And then I'm like, well, I didn't actually create that button. That button wasn't actually something that I have put in. You just press that button. You've got custom code, and it's just gone bang. Or perhaps you pressed that button, but you hadn't have taken the backup, and you didn't realize that your database was getting so big, and it fell over, or something like that. And therefore, you've got sort of like a halfway house in the migration. You're not actually fully migrated, fully upgraded. You just have sort of a half-built thing. And then, sometimes I would get called in and recover this stuff. Whenever I do, I then enforce that there needs to be backups. You can't press this button unless you've backed up the site, and you can't do anything to the site unless it's backed up on a daily basis. So, that was the thing that really annoyed me one of the things that annoyed me with the Concrete5 when I was doing this upgrade path was the fact that you were giving a lot of ownership over, a lot of responsibility over to Concrete5, and as a developer, it's sort of like you lose control a little bit, and I don't like that. I like to know what exactly has changed. This, for example, what's going on here? Warning, class resolution normalizer was found in both. This stuff. What do I do with that? That hasn't actually failed. It's saying that there is a class resolution issue. So what happens here? because I'm not necessarily aware of what normalizer is, I don't know whether it's going to fail or not, depending on what I do. In my opinion, that's like a ticking time bomb. I don't know. Anyway, so that's all done. Let's just do an ls. So we can do an ls of vendor to show you what we've got, quite a bit. And what I'm going to do, what's the next step? Oops, I've lost my windows. Where am I? Here we go. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we've done that. We're going to build yes, we're going to cd back down to here. Obviously, my IDE is having to do a massive bunch of re-indexing because all of those new files are in. So hopefully this will be okay. So we go cd and then down one. So we're in the root level. And then we do, if I go back to here, oops, come on. Docker compose up -d and then build. So I'm going to just hit that. That's going to create all the volumes. Then it's going to build Apache. Then it's going to build MySQL with all of the configuration that we've baked in, all the .env stuff, the environment variables. So I'm going to let that run. And I'm just going to flip back to the PHP Storm. And yeah, it's still indexing. Gosh. So there we go. How are we doing with this build? Okay, so it's still thinking about it. I think what I'm going to do is, whilst that's happening, I'm going to spin up. Let me just put that back on as that's building. I'm just going to, whilst that's running, I'm just going to bring up another thing here. I'm just going to change. I'm going to just faff about with my hosts. So I'm just going to do Docker machine. You won't see this because this is in another browser, another window. But Docker machine. I'm doing Docker machine ls just to bring up all of the machines, just to list them all, just so I can see what the IP is of this. And that's taking time. I think my machine is doing a lot of stuff. Yeah, that's hanging. Oh dear. Okay, so come on. I think I've asked my machine to do too much work. Let's just close that down. Nope, still failing. Okay, maybe I should wait until the index is over with PHP Storm. PHP Storm can be a bit of a resource hog. Plus, I'm doing a whole build of 2 servers, well, 2 containers. Wow, that's taking ages. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to turn that off. So this is what I was trying to do. I was trying to run Docker machine ls just to get a list of all the machines. I've got a feeling I know what the IP is actually. I did that before, didn't I? Let's scroll up to... Oh, I'm probably not going to see it in the history. I think it was 100. Yeah, I think it was 100. Let's just go back here. I'm just going to go into my hosts. Nope, that's not going to... sudo etc hosts. sudo sudo vi. I need to go into it as vi. Right, and then I need to change one of my hosts. I'll change that to be 2, and I'll do 192.168.99.100, and we're going to set that to be temp.local, because that's what we set the server name to. Close that down, and then I cannot remember for the life of me how to update, the host file on a Mac. So let's just check that out. Mac update hosts. Come on. Even the internet is running slow. I wonder if this stream is dying. Okay, come on. Now, what do we need? One last step. Here we go. Sudo kill all, and then a lot of stuff. So grab that, put that into the terminal. Wonderful. So let's just come out of that. By exiting that terminal. There we go, and we'll come off of that. Let's just go back into here. Let's just double check that I have done that right. So 192.168.99.100 is temp.local. And there isn't another IP to conflict that. That's all good. And I can do a kill all. Okay, cool. Wonderful. Okay, so we are still waiting for all of this stuff to go through. Obviously, there's quite a lot to go through. It's going to have to do a whole compile of the Apache image with PHP, with all those extensions and stuff. So it will take a bit of time, unfortunately. But what I'm hoping to do is I'm hoping to get to the point where the browser loads up Concrete5. So that's what I was doing with the host files. I was changing the local host files of my local host machine of this iMac here to run against the 192.168.99.100 IP address, which is the IP address of the Docker machine that we've just created. So hopefully that's all working good, and we will hopefully be able to get this to run soon. It's quite a lot of stuff, isn't there? I guess what I could do is bring that back, and what I could do is just commit some of these changes. So that commit, let's just do git commit. I don't know if you can see this because this is all no, you can't. This is like pop-ups, but I'm just going to change a couple of things. So changed. So I'm just writing out changed network name, and what else did I change? Changed MySQL volume name. It's a data volume, isn't it? That's what I changed. And yep, that looks good. I will commit that. Oh yes, I also changed MySQL, spelled like that, MySQL version, well, it's not, I didn't change it, I downgraded it, graded MySQL version from 8 to 5.7. And we'll commit that file. And this, what did I do? I removed the email address. Removed email address. Okay. So I'm going to just do a git push. That's all good. Push all those things. And yes, what we can see on here is that we're doing the whole compile of PHP. So we're compiling all of those extensions. What I can do is just show you the Dockerfile, which is here. So it's just installing MySQL, PDO, IconV, simple XML, and configuring the GD and zip extensions. Then it's doing an apt-get clean to just clean down make the image nice and small. It's then removing all the cached stuff in varlib apt, and then it's enabling mod rewrite. So that's that process, which it's still currently doing. Then after that's built, what happens is on the Docker Compose file, it then runs through the MySQL image. And this is MySQL 5.7. Setting the ports, making sure it depends upon the Apache container or Apache service. This is why Apache is running first. And then we're injecting the env file in. So we have these environment variables set. And we're using a bridged network, which is the test_net network. I think that's fine. I don't think that's an issue. Like, I'm just trying to think of any possible issues that might come up. I think that's all right. In the Docker ignore, we have site vendor, which is site vendor, because we're ignoring that. And we're also site public application files as well, because they are the config files. They live in public application. Where are we? They're somewhere in here. Or no, they haven't actually been built yet. That stuff that gets built with the image that gets ran. If I go down to here, come out of this, go into the Docker file here. So mkdir, which makes the directory. P means, go through and create the directories if they don't currently exist. So that will create languages and site from here. Now I got this stuff from the Concrete5 forum, and I don't know if it's relevant for this version. It works, so I'm happy that it works. But if anybody is watching this and they've done this before, then and they're looking at this and they're going, "What on earth are you doing?" Then do let me know. I've just had a look on here. What we're doing now is we're copying the site. So we're copying everything from here in there. Oh, sorry. In here over to var www HTML, because that's defined in the Dockerfile here. Copy site, and we're the working directory, which you have to set above the copy instruction, does that. Now that's a bit worrying. That's a bit worrying. My terminal window has just crashed, so I don't know if this is going to work. Let's just have a look. Docker machine ls. No, I've got a feeling I was taxing this machine a little bit too hard. Okay, let's have a look and see. I might have to, bear with me a minute, because this is going to look a bit different because it's crashed and I've just had to reopen it. Docker machine eval Concrete5 Docker. Okay, what I'll do, let's make that a little bit bigger. Whoop, not that big. Bring that in. I'm gonna have to, that's frustrating. I'm gonna have to term properties. There you are. Okay, so we've got our new thing. Whoops. Cool. And let's see if we can get that back. So clear down that. Let's do. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize I shut that off. There we go. Sorry, I didn't realize I shut that off. Let's have a look. That window is too big. Let's bring that back. Okay, so if we did Docker images, what have we got? We have PHP 7.2 and none, so we don't have that yet. Okay, that's fine. Let's just go back to, I think it was Concrete 5, yep. Did I spell that right? Yep, Concrete5 install. Okay, let's try that again. Hopefully that's not going to have to do the whole thing again. I might have to stop this stream and then redo it again tomorrow at this particular point. But I've got a feeling that my iMac is grinding to a halt. We do have all the other things in cache. This is a great example, though, of why Docker is so good, because there is a problem here. Cannot access that. I might have to actually make that file. Let me do that now. So that is in PyCharm. There we go. So it is public applications files, site public application files. So I think what I'm going to do, actually, what would be better is if I was to do that in the Docker image rather than do it manually, because I would need to put that as a git keep to keep that, because it's going to be an empty directory. So the problem is at this point here. So what I need to do is, it's essentially like that, isn't it? Really. So and mkdir p public application and its files. And I like to have, this is like a new thing that I like to have all of these things lined up. Just makes for readability. So this is going to make that directory, and then it's going to set that up. Okay, so let's save that, go back into, where are we? Where is that? Here we go. Okay, so now I'm going to just run that again. And hopefully that will make that directory before it throws that error, before it tries to change. Because what's happening, you see, is it's trying to set the permissions of that directory that doesn't exist. So what I've done in PHP Storm at this point here is I've forced it to make that directory if it doesn't exist. So mkdir p v, and then, well, v is like verbose, and then p will force it to make that directory if that directory doesn't exist. So, for example, if application didn't exist, that kind of thing, that would make that too. So if we go back to the terminal, no, here, we can see that that has now passed. It's now changed all of these ownerships. This is why I have the V flag on, because I like to see what's going on. And now it's doing this whole thing with my MySQL 5.7. So that's good. We've got that done. We have PHP 7.2 installed. We've got Concrete5 in there, and we've handled all the permissions and stuff. So hopefully once this is done, I will then be able to check the browser. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Yeah. So I mean, this is an interesting point that I want to talk about. Really, there is a lot involved with this, a huge amount involved in just getting this content management system running. And it's not really the fault of the content management system. It's just like, this is stuff that lots of people who aren't aware of web development, they just don't appreciate. This is the stuff that happens in the complete background, right? When we go and build websites. This has now taken me, an hour? And I should have been done like 30 minutes ago. I wanted to be done 30 minutes ago because I wanted to chill out this evening and watch Game of Thrones. But even my estimates are completely wrong. And I ran this fine on my laptop this morning, and I thought everything was good to go. I could do a live stream and it should just be nice and simple and polished. But we're hitting all of these issues that I didn't necessarily expect. And this is just the thing with what we do. So this is a point I would like to make when quoting for work. You always need to have like a margin of error when you're quoting for freelance work, because there's so many things that you just don't anticipate will go wrong, and they do go wrong. You know, if anything can go wrong, it will go wrong. So we've now created these containers, and if I did Docker PS, we should see those containers that are down, that are exited, are the failed containers that we tried to do before. So I'm just going to clear these out. So Docker RM, just because they're getting in the way of this very small screen, I'm just going to put that in and that name in, and do a Docker PS-A. Another thing that I want to show is just Docker compose PS. This is a nice little way of just showing you what the services are in a nice, I find this more readable than the Docker PS command. So you've got the names here of the services, Apache and MySQL, and then we've got all of these things. I just want to double check MySQL, so I'm going to do Docker exec-it. We're going to go into MySQL. We're going to go that's the name of the service, but we also need to go in as MySQL -u root -p. That should ask me for the permission, access denied for user. Oops, sorry, I need a space between the two. Okay, so I'm going to put that password in. Yes. Now I'm going to show the databases. We should have example. So that was the example database that we created. It's completely empty. It doesn't have any tables in, but with the environment variables that we supplied with MySQL, that database does get created by default, which is fantastic. So let's just close that down. And yeah, I guess now we try and do the big reveal. Let me just go and double check myself if this works. The fact that it's frozen again is a bit worrying. Wow. Okay, so let me just dive straight back into the browser. Ta-da! Temp.local is now this. So we now have Concrete5 installed, and I did that in 1 hour and 3 minutes. So yeah. So now we can go through all of this stuff. I might do a tutorial on this later on. Concrete5, the editor side of Concrete5, it's not really what this channel is all about. This channel is all about, you know, setting up all of these systems. It's not really, or, you know, the technical stuff behind it. So I do obviously go into to train clients and stuff on how they use these systems and stuff after I've researched how to use these systems myself. But this channel is more about the geeky, programmy, Dockery, Linuxy stuff rather than let's build a website using Concrete5. But if there is a need for that, then do let me know in the comments below, and I might consider doing it later on. But this is pretty cool. This is, you know, you can see up here it's version 8.5.1. It's asking me here to choose a language, so I would choose English. This on my laptop was taking a long time to do because what it's going through in the background is setting up all the databases. And this page was the stickler that I had, because there was all sorts of things that were crossed out rather than green ticked. So, for example, I had issues with the UTF-8, which I don't even think is on this list. I had other issues with I didn't have any XML support to begin with, and I didn't have the zip thing to begin with either. But yeah, so we can continue on to the installation. I might as well just show you this just to wrap this all up. So we get this sort of nice form thing. And what you would do is you would put in the name of the website, so that, put in your email address, so Pete at, I don't know, test.com. This is just whatever. The administrator password, they both need to be the same. Right, okay, so this is the stuff that you need to configure. Now, I don't know why this would be so much better if Concrete5 auto-populated this stuff from the environment variables that you've set. I don't know why. So what we need to do is we need to set these to those environment variables. So if I went back to the code here, where are we? That one. That's what I need to do. We go back to the code, we can see that somewhere, where are we? env. Not in that one, in the root. Okay, so we're using host of MySQL, database is example, root is the root, and password is test. Not the best, I appreciate. So what I need to do in here is server is the host, so that would be MySQL. That's the name of the service in Docker. It's not the fact that it is a MySQL database, it's just because it's called MySQL, the service. The username is root, the password is test, I believe, and the database is example. So you click yes, I understand, and then you install all the things. So this might take a little bit of time to do. And yeah, throughout this process, I was getting all sorts of errors. But we can see that it's now building, and you can see at the bottom that it's starting the installation and creating the directories, creating the database tables, and installing. And I guess what I could do is I could have a look at the databases, or the database tables behind. I might do that after this is all done, after we've created the database tables. Once that section is done, I might just do that just to wrap this up. So, of course, I've got there's no sort of indication of how long this is going to take. Okay, so now it's creating the website. So just to sort of like be doubly sure, if I went back to here, I could now do go back into that, put in the password, do use of example. Right, so that's okay, cool. And then show tables, tables. And there we go. 276 tables have been created. Wow. So this is all the stuff. Oh, sorry. Silly me. I'll do that again. Let's exit this. Sorry. Right, okay, so I'm going back into the MySQL Docker service, putting in the password, then saying use example, because that's the database that we have created. That can take some time. And then show tables, and we should see all of the tables, now 281 of them. This is all the tables that Concrete5 installs, and you can see that there's a bunch of stuff there for Express, calendars, areas, and various other bits and pieces, stuff that I'm not even aware of yet. And the GA pages, I'm guessing that's Google Analytics, something to do with social links. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much it, to be honest. Let's just exit this out. And then if I went back to the browser, we can still see that it's still building. It's where's my finger? It's there. Can you see it? Woo, there. It's installing in a spinny kind of way, and you do get some feedback. So it's now saying it's adding form block types and so forth, but it is taking is taking its merry time. A recommendation is, when you get to this point, when you've done everything and you have the website built after this has been installed, take a backup of the database, because and then if you ever need to tear down the Docker containers, because you've messed something up, because there's a configuration issue, because when I was doing it, I was sort of like feeling my way through what extensions needed to be